Thank you, Oksana. Yes, Peter has given you a really nice overview of kind of what our overall goal is. And I would maybe want to add just one comment onto that, and that's the fact that we are actually looking at designing a performance-based, an economically driven breeding program here. So our main concerns are actually with questions like, what is the individual queen worth? And that's not the kind of worth at the point of sale of an improved queen, but that's the breeding worth that this particular queen carries for the overall population. So in general, and just to kind of answer that question, what we're looking for in terms of traits and characteristics, we can look at a whole bunch of different areas of traits that might be interesting for bee breeding. And of course, that all starts with, at least here, probably not in North America, but here it starts with production traits. And for us, it's honey production, of course, first and foremost. We were also interested in thinking about propolis production because propolis has such huge implications for hive health. But then we're looking at population-related parameters as well. So we might be interested in spring population buildup. We might be interested in brood viability, hive strength. Then characteristics that are related to labor requirements and how much time actually a beekeeper has to spend tending to a particular hive. Of course, yesterday during the one queen, single queen, double queen debate, we heard about that not in every system people actually spend the time looking for the queen at each visit, so those systems might be less impacted by temperament differences. Then we're of course interested in disease resistance, but unfortunately, as Peter pointed out, disease resistance is a very, very complex field, and we might actually have to put in some more basic scientific work to figure out what exactly it is that we're looking for here. Then a more kind of general expression of health and robustness might be wintering ability. And then, of course, in New Zealand with the very, very bright yellow Italians and quite dark Carnies. And in some cases, one might actually say that the Italians here are lighter than they are anywhere else, and the Carnies tend to be very dark. Color is also a concern, and then pollination traits, which we currently haven't finally defined. So looking at all of these traits, what exactly do we do with that? And we put together a breeding objective, and a breeding objective in the widest terms is the goal of a breeding program. So every single breeding program has that breeding objective, but in terms of an the economically driven breeding programs that we see in all of the other livestock industries and that we want to implement in bees as well, where it actually defines the formula that defines the ideal individual. It tells us exactly what a particular queen carries in terms of genetic merit that she's going to contribute to the population. So for kind of the very basic breeding objective that we start off with, because we have to start somewhere, we decided to go with honey yield, gentleness or temperament, and I chose gentleness to just impress that we're looking for an improvement here, and winter survival. And we use these basic traits so then go away, look at all of the information that we have about financial performance of beekeeping operations in New Zealand, that we have about prices, price structures of honey, of pollination traits. And essentially, I put together a profit function. Profit function is very basic. It's just income minus costs. So in this case, we're looking at income from honey minus the costs incurred because of additional labor requirements with angry bees, and replacement costs after winter. So I actually took all of the information that I could out of the apiculture reports, out of what we know about bee biology, what we know about particular beekeeping businesses here in New Zealand that we work with, and I came up with what we call economic values. So these numbers that you can see here, so $11.65 for honey $70.73 for gentleness, and $53.62 for wintering. Those are the value of 1 unit change in the genetic merit of a particular queen that can actually be achieved over 1 season, because we assume that most commercial queens don't actually make it past 1 season. So this means that the $12 for honey is actually, that's a compound value for the entire New Zealand beekeeping industry. If you are an operator that is purely running on Manuka, I commend you. And then, of course, this value is not going to apply. It should be higher. But since Manuka doesn't actually make up that much of the overall honey crop, this is what we end up with. The $70 are essentially just what happens if you look at all of the visits over the entire season and add up the additional labor that you have to spend because your bees are angry and you can't find the queen. You have to spend more time, you have to don more gear, you have to take it all back off. So, yeah. And then in terms of what else we might actually add on to this, that's where what Peter mentioned comes in, and that is that we need input from the industry. And we want people to tell us exactly what it is that we should be including. In some cases, that will mean that we have to actually come up with a way to define a trait. And we need to know what value are people putting, what kind of weight are people putting on particular traits. Is it more important that a queen produces a lot of honey or the colony produces a lot of honey than that same colony might be varroa resistant? Or is it the other way around? We need to know these things, and the only way that we can find out is by you to tell us. So, yeah, please come find Peter or myself. We can give you a card, and you can contact us, and we will send out the survey at the end of the year. And please just, tell us what you want us to do, because we're here for you. We have no other reason for being here. So, thank you.